What an incredible character. Today, we're diving deep into the story of one of the most complex and influential figures in the shinobi world, Uchiha Madara. My name is Oliver, a psychology graduate, and before we get started, I'd love for you to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. This really helps boost the channel's visibility, especially as we're just getting started, and it would allow us to keep growing and creating more content. Your support means a lot. Madara lived during one of the most hostile and violent eras in shinobi history. In this time, children were dragged into battle from a very young age, forced to fight like adults in a world where life expectancy was terrifyingly short. It was an age of pain, sacrifice, and constant wars between clans. Survival hinged on strength, and those who were not strong enough perished early. Childhood, as we understand it today, simply didn't exist. Children had to mature quickly and become warriors. It's fascinating to think about how this environment shaped the minds and strength of individuals like Madara. There's an old Eastern proverb that says, "Hard times create strong men create easy times create weak men, and weak men create hard times." This cycle repeated in Madara's world, and he is a prime example of what suffering and adversity can do to a person. Could these violent times have shaped Madara's incredible strength and determination? His power is often cited as one of the greatest in shinobi history, surpassing even some of the most formidable warriors who ever lived. But what made him stand out? What was the element that turned him into a legend? Even as a child, Madara displayed a unique worldview. He didn't agree with the violent system of constant wars between the clans. The death of his brothers was a devastating blow, something that scarred him deeply and influenced his future decisions and outlook. He firmly believed that children shouldn't be part of wars and that something needed to change. In this way, he shared the same vision as Hashirama Senju, another major figure in shinobi history, and, ironically, his greatest rival and friend. Both Madara and Hashirama grew up amidst the chaos of war, forced to fight from a young age. They believed in a different world, one where peace was possible, but the road to that peace was never simple. The constant losses Madara faced, the death of his brothers, and the traumas he endured throughout his life shaped his personality. As he grew, his vision of peace became increasingly distorted by bitterness and a desire for control. The rivalry between the Uchiha and Senju clans spanned generations. Their animosity wasn't just about physical battles, but also psychological ones. The influence of the clans over their members was so deep that it completely shaped their perceptions and actions. To what extent was Madara's personality shaped by his clan and the extreme circumstances he lived in? Social psychology offers a clue to understanding this. According to psychologist Charles Kelly, there is a concept called conformity, where individuals, upon entering a group, tend to adapt their behavior to align with the expectations and norms of that group. This phenomenon can be seen in various everyday situations, such as in football fan groups, where people, feeling part of a collective, behave differently than they would alone, often getting involved in fights they would avoid if isolated. In Madara's case, this group influence was even more intense. He grew up in a clan where rivalry with the Senju was deeply rooted. From a young age, he was led to believe that strength and power were the only ways to gain respect and security. This mindset shaped his decisions and actions throughout his life. When with his clan, he conformed to the will of the Uchiha, and this social pressure shaped his actions. On the other hand, Hashirama also represented the will of his clan, the Senju, which led to their repeated confrontations. Madara and Hashirama fought countless times. Both were extraordinarily powerful, but Hashirama always managed to come out on top. However, the turning point in their relationship came when Hashirama, in an act of sacrifice, offered to give his life for a dream they had both shared since childhood: a world of peace. This gesture touched Madara deeply, finally leading him to accept a truce. It was at this moment that the two founded the Leaf Village, marking the beginning of a new era in the shinobi world. However, the Madara who participated in the village's founding was no longer the same person who had once dreamed of peace as a child. He had become a perfectionist, someone who needed absolute control. He didn't trust the idea of shared power and believed that the Leaf Village should have control over all the tailed beasts and other villages. To him, control was synonymous with security. But this obsession with control wasn't just a strategic matter. It was deeply rooted in his personal experiences. Madara believed he knew what was best for everyone and tried to impose his vision of a perfect world on others. His inability to save his brothers and to maintain a lasting friendship with Hashirama contributed to his desire to control the world around him. This brings us to wonder, did Madara develop obsessive-compulsive personality disorder? People with this disorder are known for being extremely perfectionistic and for feeling the need to control every aspect of their lives. People who are inflexible can be described as rigid and stubborn. They insist that things must be done in a specific way without considering alternative approaches. In other words, these individuals feel the need to control everything around them, believing firmly that their way is the only correct one, dismissing any other possibilities. In Madara's case, this trait is very prominent. He believes that his vision of the world is the only valid one. When he learns about the Eye of the Moon plan, which involves placing everyone under an eternal genjutsu to eliminate pain, suffering, and hatred, he becomes fascinated by the idea. In his view, the shinobi world had failed to create a peaceful society, and his concept of an ideal world had never been realized. Madara tries to impose this model on Hashirama, but Hashirama, not fully grasping the plan, rejects it. This leads to another wave of conflict, this time between the two of them. Madara played a key role in perpetuating the hatred between the clans. If you'd like, I can make a more detailed video about him. He faked his own death and lived far beyond a normal human's lifespan, all in pursuit of executing the Eye of the Moon plan, his idea of a perfect world. However, he failed to consider that this world without pain and suffering might not turn out as he had envisioned. Human happiness, according to the hedonic adaptation theory, which explains how people return to a baseline level of happiness after positive or negative events, shows us that even in a perfect world, people might adapt and no longer feel the happiness Madara imagined. British psychologist Michael Eysenck compared the pursuit of happiness to running on a treadmill. You have to keep moving just to stay in the same place. This suggests that in Madara's world, people would eventually grow accustomed to eternal happiness, making it lose its meaning. Many philosophers believe that a life without suffering or challenges would be extremely boring. Happiness and suffering exist in contrast to one another. In other words, you only recognize something as good because you have a reference point of what is bad. In a world without suffering, like the one Madara proposed, new forms of suffering might arise, as the absence of challenges can be seen as a type of suffering itself. Madara was incredibly powerful and believed he had the right to shape the fate of all people on Earth. He and Hashirama, two of the strongest shinobi of all generations, had similar personalities in some respects, but they dealt with pain in completely different ways. Over time, Madara began to believe he knew what was best for humanity, while Hashirama had a more balanced and grounded vision, understanding his own limits. In the end, Madara realizes that he had been manipulated by greater forces and that he would not be able to achieve his goal. He finally understands that no single human should be responsible for the entire fate of humanity. Hashirama, known as the God of Shinobi, always had a sense of mortality, and in the end, Madara accepts that he should have followed a similar path. He concludes that suffering is an essential part of the human condition. Stoics, like Seneca, used to say that man is a slave to what he fears losing. For them, one way to ease suffering is to accept that it will happen and to prepare for it. This philosophy might have helped Madara cope better with his losses and his desire for absolute control. Madara and Hashirama were inseparable during the founding of the Leaf Village, forming an unbeatable team. Kudos to Naruto for bringing us such complex characters like Madara, who could easily have been the protagonist of his own story. He is a fascinating example of the struggle between the desire for control and the inevitability of human suffering. So, that's it, folks. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. Next Tuesday, we'll have a video about Sasuke, and we're on track to reach 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year.